When we entered Afghanistan in the spring of 2004 and saw this young boy trying to earn a bit of money, I thought to myself, some things never change. My wife Olga Shalygin and I had seen an old man clearing the sand from the road in the very same place 2 years before. But we soon learned that in fact there have been changes in Afghanistan since our earlier trip. Our first stop was in the north, Mazar-I-Sharif, one of the country's largest cities. Two years ago, people here were in shock from decades of war. There was little commerce and abundant poverty. Everywhere, we saw unemployed men with guns. This time, we were encouraged. People were exceedingly friendly. Traffic officers now carry some clout. For the first time, we saw law and order on the streets. There is still poverty, but many Afghans have money, and there are places to spend it. Stores sell entertainment that the Taliban had outlawed only a few years ago. Afghans are finally getting the tools of technology to connect the people here to each other and to the outside world. Cars and motorbikes are replacing donkeys and camels. The city is humming, and the seeds of freedom of speech are sprouting.
خبری رئیس جمهور بوش گزارش تهیه کرده است. جورج بوش رئیس جمهور ایالات متحده آمریکا در این کنفرانس خبری.
But is this prosperity sustainable? Foreign organizations like the UN support a huge portion, about 40% of the country's economy right now. Without them, the boom we're seeing here could easily fizzle. Not much has changed for women. Olga and I were stunned to see that almost all of them still wear the burqa. But there are hints of change here, too. Professor Mohammed Zaki teaches English at Balkh University in Mazar. Zaki tells us things have changed since we saw him 2 years ago.
Nowadays, as it is going on nowadays, the condition is getting good because we have done many things to have good security, to have good peace in our country.
Several of Zaki's students are young women, free now to go to university, one of the few places where they can comfortably uncover their faces in the presence of men. But as they leave the school, the burqa goes back on, offering them some necessary protection even in this city that bustles with progress, optimism, and a sense of stability. Is this just another lull between the country's repeated storms of violence? Or with presidential elections scheduled for the fall, is Afghanistan really turning toward peace and democracy? At the regional UN headquarters for elections, we met John Landry.
When I first arrived here, everybody was armed, but 5 or 6 months ago, the city declared no arms within the city limits. And things have quieted down quite a lot since that has happened. You can walk around the city. The only arms you do see are either military or policemen, but you see very few civilians with weapons anymore in the city.
The impending elections are a source of both hope and tension in Afghanistan. We weren't sure if this country, so wounded by war, could be healed by a bit of democracy. But in cities like Mazar-I-Sharif, men are lining up to register, and they are proud of their voting cards. What do you hope the president will accomplish?
یک رئیس جمهور باید کارهای اولی که انجام بده مردم از فقر و گرسنگی خلاص کنه. دوم صلح و آرامش به وطن بیاره. سوم مردمی که رنج دیده و ستم دیده هستن اشکای او را خوش کنه. اشکای او را خوش.
We have already registered twice the amount of people we expected to. In the city itself. And this is because the number of people living in Mazar is far greater than official figures show.
Women, too, are seizing the opportunity to turn a new page in their country's troubled history.
طوری که گفتیم افغانستان آرام شد بیا بریم ما یک رای بدیم که حکومت صحیح به حال تیار شوه و ما آرام شویم و مردای ما کار کنه و ما بیکار باشیم.
But for many women like these, simply registering to vote is influenced by habits that are tough to break after years under the Taliban. Some can only offer their thumbprint and name as identification. Their husbands won't allow them to have their picture taken. And they have mixed feelings about the new constitution giving women equal rights. The younger women are more optimistic.
من بسیار احساس خوب میکنم به خاطر که حقوق زن و مرد مساوی شده. ما میتونیم که کار کنیم آزادانه خدمت کنیم به مردم خود. زن و مرد یک جای کار کنن مثل خوار و بیادر. برای ما افتخار است. ما بسیار خوش هستیم.
But others are more skeptical.
هنوز دولت است که نو رشد میکنه که میگن که حقوق زن و مرد مساوی، لیکن در بعض عرصه‌ها که آدم میبینه ولی مساوی هم نیست. بعضی جای
But as Afghanistan takes these slow steps toward the future, much also remains the same. The Taliban are a continuing and violent threat, recently killing several people whose only crime was having a voter registration card. We questioned whether the progress we'd seen in Mazar was typical, so we left for Saki, a refugee camp a short distance away, hoping to ask some of the people we'd met there 2 years before. Moving out of the city, we recognized once again what a land of contrast Afghanistan is. The more modern lifestyle developing in Mazar vanished as we left the city. We found Saki camp abandoned. Two years ago, it was a bustling encampment of 15,000 refugees, with a school, a medical clinic, free-flowing water, food, and shelter. We'd met Ustad Mohammadullah then, an elder for 300 families from the Alborz mountain region. All of them had come to Saki camp to escape the violence of war, and vowed not to leave the relative comfort of the camp. But now, they were all gone. We wanted to find these people again, so we left for the Alborz Mountains. It's a half-day drive through rural areas where life may not have changed much in centuries. This is the way an estimated 80% of Afghanistan's people live. We showed the shepherd a picture we'd taken of Ustad Mohammadullah 2 years before. He didn't know him, but he wanted us to know that his life as a shepherd is hardly pastoral.
Military people bother him now?
It was the kind of story we heard over and over again while searching for Mohammadullah. At the next village, where visitors are extremely rare, these men gathered around us. One of them recognized Mohammadullah from the photos and said he lives nearby. But word soon reached the elder that foreigners were looking for him, and he came walking down the road.
This man. Yes. Jor bakhir saad man hai. Yere shnakhti. Yak dafa da kam sakhi pesh tamada u taksi gerefte bud.
2 years ago, we talked to him and he was at Saki camp.
Mege 2 sal pesh mamurad gab zadim ke da sakhi camp budi.
Does he remember it all?
Yes.
He had schools, running water, medical clinics. Does he have these services here?
Mege da.
ما متوقعیم اول خانه آرامی است.
Security first issue.
آرامی است. دوی ما مردم ملک ما یک ملک چول است. آب آشامدی نداریم.
The second time we're in a
بازار ما دور است. کلینیک نداریم. مکتب نداریم. از هر ایناست ما مردم هم تو نامید است. معروم است.
Why, if it was better at Saki camp, why did you leave Saki camp?
مجبور اومدیم دولت اومد ما را ملل متحد اومد بازور اومدیم مگنی بریزون نیم اومدیم عزیز بسیار زندگی موجود بهتر بود
تشکر بسیار
زیاد چای بخوریم چای
let's have a tea here
چای
بخوریم
Even though water must be carried from far away and food is scarce, the elder honored us by offering us tea and bread with the village men. He talked more about the heavily armed militia who roamed the area. Nearby, a man suddenly stopped our car.
دو نفر خود کاندید کده.
دو نفر چی کاندید کده ها؟
اینا همینجا برای قشلاق‌ها برای حساب نمایندگی رای گیری در رای گیری رای از این مردکی دیگه زیاد برآمده او دیگه گفته که اگر زیاد هم برآمده اون او کمش با کمی برای تفنگ مینازه تفنگ داره تفنگ سالار است حالا میزنه حالا اینا گریخته که ما رو نکشه سرش کفانده خودش لط کده حالا میخواد که ما رو نکشه
It happened simply because they voted the wrong way. We followed him to a compound where a few of the people who had fled their village were hiding out.
همون زنایی که لط خورده که
بله آنها مناس لط خوردن
ابرار ما کشت ابرار دارم کشت من
and the others
بیرست بازار است پیش شما فقط تو کتک شو تو آلگار نشدن دست ما زیر پای جالو کماندن
they hated just to be punished
همه تا که سالا جمع نشه در البرز آرامی نمیشه
یعنی حالات البرز هست
بله دیگه کدام گپ دیگه نیست هر کسی که یک تفنگ داره خود از اون یک حکومت است در اینجا حکومت هنوز هم وجود نداره
Inside a hut, this man, Baz Muhammad, seemed unlikely to survive.
Does he hear anything? Is he in a coma?
گپ زده میتونه میگه he cannot reply he cannot speak ما کوشش میکنیم که این گپای شما را در ایالات متحده آمریکا
برادر ما کشت
هاش ده سقرش تو ده شمون بچه ما کشت یک سقر تو ده شمون
It was getting late and our driver suggested we leave El Borz before dark, since that's when the militia come out. Olga and I wondered whether voting would mean anything to these people as long as their votes are not secret and the power of the gun still prevails over the power of the vote. We went to a town called Sholgara, a rural trading post, looking for Police Chief Akbari. We talked to him 2 years earlier about the frequent skirmishes in his town between the forces of two warlords, Dostum and Atta, whose soldiers are a constant threat to peace. We showed him his picture from our previous visit.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Same man. He looks very different now.
Yeah.
And asked him about the danger to the villagers caught in the violence between feuding militias.
اینا تعداد از اینا خیلی زیاد است، گروپ‌های پراکنده و غیر منظم است که از نام دوستم به نام قلوردو و هوادار جمعیت و جنبش از نام از اینا استفاده کرده برای تصاحب قدرت، برای گرفتن یک قریه دو قریه، به نام از اینکه دایکه بگی گوسفند بگی، خیلی مورد جنگ‌های از اینا سر از این منافع مادی صورت میگیره. مشکلی ما در مورد اونایی که تفنگ دارن ما مشکل داریم. اونایی که تفنگ دارن جنایت میکنن، آدم میکشن و اگر جنایت هم بکنن مگر ما مربوط قول اردو هستیم، مربوط سارانولی نظامی هستیم و پلیس صلاحیت تحقیق ما را ندارن. ما در قسمت خلی صلاح از اینا خب مجامع جهانی ما نظر ما این است که یک راه روشی را پیدا بکنه. اگر از طریق نظامیگری دست به اقدام بزنه ما فکر میکنیم که تشنج شاید زیاد شود در سطح افغانستان.
I thank you. تشکر.
تشکر از شما که اینجا تشریف آوردین از این مردمی.
We stopped for lunch nearby. Mohammed Alam's family has owned this small cafe in Sholgara for 40 years. We'd seen a lot of election posters, but this one was unusual. I asked Mohammed about it.
urushdan bas qilibdi. Intihobat bo'lsin. Araqdan maqsad nima ham kelibdiki, intihobat ko'p odilona bo'lsin deb. Paysam o'zotibdi olmabdi. Tufangchamni ham ko'taribdiki.
Is it safe here, or are there still problems with the soldiers?
Masaladan 100% degan shikoyat bor. Bizlar hech ehtiyojlarga emas, faqat taomga shu masalani qo'liga son
He was worried about being overheard and stopped the interview.
He's going to
To understand how the warlords can strike such fear in the countryside, we went to one of the compounds belonging to General Atta, a Tajik warlord and the most powerful man in Mazar-I-Sharif. In 2002, Atta wore military fatigues. Now he wears a business suit.
General Atta, you have much experience and are well respected in this country. What role would you like to have in the next government?
و افسر نظامی هم نبودیم. یه رشته و مسلک انتخاب هم نکردیم. ولی ما رسالت ما ختم شده. افغانستان از شوروی از خطر تهدید کمونیسم نجات دادیم. افغانستان از خطر تهدید تروریسم نجات دادیم. حالا می‌خوایم که حکومت باثبات داشته باشیم و ما تغییر مسلک بدیم. برای کارهای ملکی، فرهنگی و سیاسی. حال ما نیازمند به هستیم که صلاح دیپور شد.
There is a government disarmament program, but so far, fewer than 1/5 of the soldiers have turned in their weapons.
So let me see if I understand. If the U.S. government gave the money so that all the soldiers could give their weapons and build roads, then they would be ready to do that?
اینطور که اگر مشخص بگیم که تنها مجاهدینی که 20 سال زحمت کشیده برن فقط برای سرکسازی، فکر میکنم که عادلانه نیست. برای مجاهدین باید کارهای دفتری، کارهای رسمی، تعداد جایگاه با اردو داشته باشن، تعداد جای با پلیس داشته باشن.
There was a big conflict here in Mazar between your forces and Dastum forces involving tanks and heavy artillery. What was the cause of that problem?
عمل جنگ توسعه طلبی دوستم و او همیشه توسعه طلبی کرده و همیشه خواسته که نه تنها 5 ولایت شمال بلکه تا قلعه‌های سر به فلک کشیده سالنگ او باید تلاش کرده که حاکم شود و با حاکمیتش یک حکومت فدرالی خود مختار اعلان بکنه.
Not long ago, Dastum was so powerful that he printed the main currency used in the north. On our way to see him, we passed some farmers working their field with heavy machinery, the first we'd seen here. A tractor like this is worth more than a lifetime of earnings for a wheat farmer. Nearby, we saw a bumper crop of flowering opium poppies. When are the poppies ready to start cutting?
دغه د ثور په میاشت کې نو دغه ثور چې داخله سي بیا شاید دا شیرې ته راشي دغه نو شاید دغه
Olga and I had heard that the warlords and their commanders take an estimated 40% of the income from opium production. For them, business is booming, and the fragile stability we've seen here depends largely on that business continuing to thrive. At Dastum's lavish and sprawling headquarters, we asked to speak with the general, but Syed Nourullah, Dastum's number 2 man, came instead, his business suit conveying the message that Dastum's Junbish organization is also trying to change its image. I asked why his militia refused to disarm.
اکنون در ولایت‌های جنوب افغانستان بالفعل طالب و القاعده موجود است. بنان ما تشویش نگرانی هنوز هم داریم که خدای نخواسته نشه وضعیت امنیتی که با وجود آمده در نتیجه مداخله بقایای طالب و القاعده ای برهم نخورد. علاوه از بلای تروریسم در دنیا بلای دیگه یا مصیبت آفات دیگه وجود داره که او عبارت از کشت و زر و ترافیک و قاچاق مواد مخدر است که در این راستا هم جنبش و مثابه یک جریان سیاسی سهم بسیار جدی در مبارزه علیه مواد مخدر داشت.
What exactly has Junbish been doing to do that? You said it's best efforts, but could you be more specific?
میخواستم صحبت بکنم قطع کردن یک ذره بی‌حوصله شدن. به هر صورت ما گروه‌های را آماده ساختیم به دورترین نقاطی از ولایت‌های شمال رفتن بالفعل اونجا عملا در قطع این اشجار دست دادن و این اقدام کردن محو کردن.
Olga and I were amazed he would say this, since we'd just seen his soldier guarding a huge poppy field along the main road to his headquarters. Warlords like these may become politicians in the new Afghanistan, but they will most likely keep their day jobs as drug lords. The opium trade is good for them and good for the economy. It's the single biggest source of increased prosperity, accounting for almost 50% of the country's economy. But it may also be the most potent barrier to democracy in Afghanistan. Even in the local markets, every agreement is a struggle. And it's not much different for the country's leaders. While the deal makers, the warlords and the politicians, negotiate the future of the country, the people's interests are much more basic.
فضا نارام باشه، صلح باشه، جنگ باشه، اولاد خود تربیت کردن نمیتونن، درس خوانده نمیتونن. فقط این احساس ما همیست که باید صلح همیشه باشه، جنگ نباشه، صلح به کلی جمع شود. فقط آرزوی من در آینده افغانستان فقط یک صلح آرامی.
It is clear for everyone that a country which has passed 23 years of civil war It's not very easy to have peace in a very short time. It needs much time to do step by step and to bring peace in our country.
The story of Afghanistan's struggle to build a peaceful country is really two stories. The one about the warlords, the drug trade, and the violence is disheartening. The other one about the people and their determination for peace is hopeful. Both stories of these war-weary people are true.